And we're heading north now to Canada, where it's even colder. And Canada's central bank also keeping its benchmark interest rate on hold. It published its first monetary report of the year. To give us more details, we head to Kristiaan Yeo, who's at the Toronto Stock Exchange. So, Kristiaan, Bank of Canada keeping the rate steady at 1%?
Yes, Michelle, still at 1%. It has been for quite some time now. That ever-elusive target of inflation of 2% kicked further down the road. 2 years now, according to the Bank of Canada's Governor, Stephen Poloz. The big disappointment in this report was the performance of our exports, our exporters. They suffered hugely in the recession when the order books fell short. But now we're seeing our trading partners, the biggest of all, America, seeing a bit of growth. You were hoping to see some sort of flames now in our exporters' performance. Sadly, that's not the case, and our exporters are not matching the performance that we're seeing elsewhere in the world.
In Canada, economic growth improved in the second half of 2013. However, there have been few signs of the anticipated rebalancing towards exports and business investment. While we are doing more work to understand this wedge between the level of Canadian exports and that of foreign demand, this remains difficult to explain. We are therefore taking a conservative approach to our forecasts for exports and assuming that this wedge will remain.
So you may be wondering why exports are so important to Canada. Well, they always have been. They form about a third of our entire economy. But they haven't performed very well since the recession, as I said. And what's driven Canada forward through those tough times has been domestic drivers, mainly the housing market. Canadians have had a long love affair with the property market. It didn't crash like it did elsewhere. But now some are saying, including the Bank of Canada, that the housing stock here in some areas is overvalued. The market is at a peak, and so is consumer debt. So it's time for Canada's exports market to start picking up the reins again and driving Canada's growth forward.
You really need the export side to pick up to allow an offset and to compensate for the fact that the domestic part of the economy has to slow down. And so really you need a balance between the two. And so another thing that the governor has to think about is the domestic economy tired? We would all agree yes. But is the export sector ready to take the helm of the growth race? And I don't necessarily know if he's seeing enough encouraging signs to say that that could actually happen.
Now, we should be seeing more enthusiasm from Canada's exporters. We're seeing more growth now in the US, also in other parts, the Eurozone, the UK for one. We're being more cautious here at the moment. Canadian exporters are often burned by turns in the US market. We were hit by the recession and also more recently by the government shutdown and the fiscal cliff discussions. Canadian exporters, Michelle, are taking a wait-and-see approach to make sure that this growth we're seeing in America is in for the long term.
All right, Kristiaan, what is the Loonie's role in all of this? We've seen some dramatic changes to the value of the Canadian dollar lately. In fact, it hit a 4-year low recently, so against the dollar. So what impact, if any, is that likely to have on Canada's situation?
Well, it dropped even lower today, Michelle. We're now at 90 US cents to one Canadian dollar. That's actually a good thing in the eyes of the Bank of Canada and exporters. It makes our exports cheaper, as I think I mentioned last week. Makes auto parts, wood products cheaper for American buyers. It makes agricultural products cheaper for Chinese buyers. It also has inflationary impact on our domestic economy. It makes imported goods more expensive. That can drive up inflation here in Canada. That in turn allows the Bank of Canada to then raise interest rates, and that will then rebalance Canada's economy. So a weakening loonie could be the key to this, Michelle.
Right, so as we talked about last time, Kristiaan, a good time to come shopping in Canada. Thanks so much, Kristiaan Yeo, live at the Toronto Stock Exchange.